Veth had seen war for 40 cycles. He had watched planets burn and armies fall. He had stood on battlefields covered with the dead and felt nothing but the cold satisfaction of victory. War was his life. War was his purpose. And after 40 cycles, he believed he understood everything about it. He was wrong. The message came on a gray morning when smoke still rose from the previous battle. Veth stood in his command tent, reading the words on his data screen with growing disbelief. Reinforcements were coming. That part was good. His forces had lost too many soldiers in the last 3 engagements against the Dreshen Empire. But the reinforcements were not Corvani warriors. They were not even from the allied Nexar fleets. They were humans. Veth had heard stories about humans. Every species in the galaxy had heard stories. They came from a small planet called Earth. Somewhere in the outer spiral of the galaxy, they had only been part of the galactic community for 50 standard years. In that time, they had spread to dozens of worlds and built a reputation that Veth did not fully understand. Some said humans were dangerous. Others said they were weak. The reports were always mixed, always confusing. Humans were small compared to Corvani. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. Their bodies broke easily. Their lifespans were short. On paper, they seemed like one of the weakest species in known space, but something about them made other species nervous. Veth did not know what that something was. He was about to find out. The human ship arrived 3 days later. It was a small vessel, built for speed rather than power. Veth watched it land on the rocky plain outside his main camp. His second officer, a young Corvani named Drex, stood beside him with his arms crossed. "This is what command sends us?" Drex said. His voice was full of disappointment. "We lose 2,000 warriors, and they send us these soft creatures?" "They send what they can," Veth replied, but he shared his officer's concern. The ship's ramp lowered, and the humans walked out. There were only 50 of them. 50 soldiers to replace 2,000. Veth felt his stomach tighten with frustration. The human leading the group was a male of average height. He had black hair cut short and dark eyes that moved constantly, studying everything around him. He walked with confidence, but not arrogance. Behind him came a female with her hair tied back. She carried a data pad and moved with quiet efficiency. The male stopped in front of Veth and performed some kind of gesture with his hand near his forehead. A salute, Veth realized. "Commander Veth," the human said. His voice was calm and clear. "I am Captain Tay. This is Lieutenant Hana. We are here to assist your campaign against the Dreshen forces." Veth looked down at the human. Corvani were tall, nearly 3 meters in height, with thick gray skin and 4 arms. Tay barely reached Veth's chest. Standing next to him, the human looked like a child. 50 soldiers, Veth said. "I requested 500. 50 is what we have," Tay replied. He did not apologize. He did not make excuses. He simply stated the fact and waited. Veth studied the human's face. There was something in those dark eyes. Something hard and sharp, like a blade hidden beneath still water. Veth had seen that look before, but only in veterans who had survived things that should have killed them. "What experience do your soldiers have?" Veth asked. "All of them have seen combat," Tay said. "Most have fought in at least 3 campaigns. A few have survived more than 10. 10 campaigns?" Drex laughed. "Impossible. Humans live such short lives. How can they fight 10 campaigns?" Tay turned his gaze to Drex. The young Corvani stopped laughing. There was nothing threatening in the human's expression. But something about the way he looked at Drex made the officer take a step back. "Humans fight differently than other species," Tay said. "We do not wait for war to come to us. We seek it out. We train for it. We prepare for it every day of our lives. When we are not fighting, we are getting ready to fight." "Why?" Veth asked. He was genuinely curious now. Tay considered the question. "Because we know what happens when we are not ready. Our history taught us that lesson many times. We learned it in blood. Hana stepped forward. Commander, may we see the tactical data from your recent engagements? We would like to understand the enemy's patterns before the next battle. Veth nodded slowly. Drex will take you to the intelligence tent. But do not expect too much. The Dreshen do not follow patterns. They adapt too quickly. Everything follows patterns, Hana said. Sometimes you just need different eyes to see them. The humans were given a section of the camp near the eastern edge. Veth watched them set up their equipment with quiet efficiency. They did not complain about the cold wind or the hard ground. They did not ask for special treatment. They simply worked. That night, Veth walked through the camp and stopped near the human section. He saw Tay sitting alone by a small fire, cleaning a weapon that looked old but well-maintained. The human looked up as Veth approached. "You do not sleep?" Veth asked. "I sleep when I need to," Tay said. "Right now, I am thinking." "About what?" "About the battle that is coming." Tay set down his weapon. "The Dreshen are not attacking randomly. Lieutenant Hana found patterns in your data. They are testing your defenses, looking for weaknesses." "We have no weaknesses," Veth said. Tay smiled. It was a strange expression, both warm and sad at the same time. "Everything has weaknesses, Commander. The trick is not to have none. The trick is to make your enemy pay too high a price to find them." Veth stood there for a long moment, looking at this small creature who spoke of war as if he had lived 1,000 years of it. There was something about Captain Tay that did not match what Veth expected, something deeper than strength or skill. "Get some rest, Captain," Veth finally said. "The Dreshen will attack within the week." "I am certain of it." "I know," Tay replied. "I can feel it in the air." Veth walked away, troubled by a feeling he could not name. He had commanded armies across a dozen worlds. He had defeated enemies that outnumbered him 10-1. But something about the humans made him uneasy, not afraid, just uncertain. And Veth did not like uncertainty. The war was coming. And for the first time in 40 cycles, Veth did not know what to expect. The Dreshen came on the 4th day. Veth stood on the ridge overlooking the valley and watched the enemy army pour through the mountain pass like a dark flood. There were thousands of them. Their black armor caught the pale morning light and turned it into something cold and sharp. They moved in perfect formation, each soldier knowing exactly where to be and what to do. The Dreshen were not like other enemies Veth had faced. They did not fight for land or resources. They fought because war was their religion. They believed that only through battle could a soul prove its worth. Every victory brought them closer to their gods. Every death was a sacrifice. That made them dangerous. An enemy who was not afraid to die was the worst kind of enemy. "They brought more than we expected," Drex said. He stood beside Veth, his forearms tight against his body. "Our scouts counted 8,000. I see at least 12. They were hiding their true numbers," Veth replied. "Testing us with smaller forces to make us confident." Behind them, the Corvani army prepared for battle. 3,000 warriors formed a defensive line across the ridge. They were strong and well-trained, but they were tired. The last 3 engagements had cost them dearly. Veth could see it in their eyes. The spark was fading. Captain Tay appeared beside Veth. The human moved quietly, like a shadow that had learned to walk. He looked down at the Dreshen army without expression. 12,000 against 3,000, Tay said. "Those are bad numbers." "We have held against worse," Veth replied. "Have you won against worse?" Veth did not answer. The truth was written in his silence. Hana joined them, her datapad in hand. "Commander, I have finished analyzing the enemy formation. They are using a wedge pattern with heavy infantry in the center. The flanks are weaker, but they have reserves waiting in the pass." "How do you know about the reserves?" Drex asked. "We cannot see past the pass. I calculated it from their movement patterns," Hana said. "The way their commanders position their front lines tells me they expect to lose soldiers on the flanks. That means they plan to replace them quickly. The only way to do that is with hidden reserves." Drex looked at her with new respect. You learned all that from watching them walk? Humans spend a lot of time studying each other, Hana replied. We learn to read body language before we learn to read words. It is useful in war. The Dreshen war drums began to beat. The sound rolled across the valley like thunder, deep and steady. Veth felt it in his bones. He had heard that sound many times. It was the sound of death approaching. All forces to defensive positions, Veth ordered. We hold the ridge at all costs. The battle began an hour later. The Dreshen charged up the slope in waves, their black armor making them look like pieces of the night that had refused to fade with morning. Corvani warriors met them with blades and shields, pushing back each wave with desperate strength. Veth fought in the center of the line. His 4 arms moved like wind, each one holding a weapon that cut through enemy armor. He had been a warrior before he was a commander. He had never forgotten how to fight, but the Dreshen kept coming. For every one that fell, 2 more took its place. The Corvani line began to bend. Veth looked for the humans. He found them on the left flank, holding a narrow section of the ridge. There were only 50 of them against hundreds of Dreshen attackers. By all logic, they should have fallen in minutes. They did not fall. Veth watched in surprise as the humans fought with a coordination that seemed almost impossible. They moved together like parts of a single machine. When one soldier attacked, another covered them. When one fell back to reload their weapon, another stepped forward to fill the gap. There was no wasted movement. No wasted energy. Captain Tay was at the center of their formation. He fought with 2 weapons, one in each hand, spinning and striking with speed that made Veth's eyes struggle to follow. But more than his skill, it was his calmness that stood out. In the middle of the chaos, Tay looked almost peaceful. The Dreshen sent more soldiers against the human position. Then more, then even more, the humans held. How are they doing that? Drex shouted over the noise of battle. Blood ran down his arm from a shallow wound, but he did not seem to notice. They should be dead. Veth had no answer. He watched a Dreshen warrior bring his blade down toward Hana's head. She moved at the last instant, letting the blade pass by her face so close that it must have touched her skin. Then she shot the warrior point blank and moved on to the next enemy without pausing. No fear. Not even a moment of hesitation. The battle lasted for 3 hours. When the Dreshen finally pulled back to regroup, Veth counted his losses. 400 Corvani dead, 600 wounded. The army was bleeding. He walked to the human position, expecting to find a similar scene of destruction. What he found was different. 8 humans were dead, 12 were wounded. The rest were already checking their weapons and preparing for the next assault. Their section of the ridge was covered with Dreshen bodies. Veth tried to count them and stopped at 300. 50 soldiers killed 300 enemy warriors, Drex said. He sounded like he did not believe his own words. Tay wiped blood from his face. It was not his blood. We had good positions. The enemy could only come at us from one direction. It limited their numbers. That is not the only reason, Veth said. He looked at the human captain with new understanding. Your soldiers fight like they have already accepted death. No, Tay replied. We fight like we have too much to lose. That is different. Hana approached them. There was a cut on her cheek, but she ignored it. Commander, I noticed something during the battle. The Dreshen commanders were watching our section specifically. They sent more soldiers against us than against any other part of the line. They were testing you, Veth realized, seeing what you could do. Yes. And now they know. Hana's expression was serious. They will change their strategy for the next attack. They saw that we are dangerous, so they will try to eliminate us first. Can you hold against a focused assault? Veth asked. Tay and Hana exchanged a look. Something passed between them. Some silent communication that Veth could not read. We will hold, Tay said. Or we will make them pay a price so high that holding will not matter. The Dreshen drums started again. They were not waiting to regroup. They were coming back immediately. Veth looked at his tired army. He looked at the dark flood of enemies filling the valley again. And then he looked at the 50 humans who stood ready to fight once more. For the first time in 40 cycles, Veth felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. It was a strange feeling, born from watching creatures half his size refuse to break. The humans were not stronger than Corvani. They were not faster or tougher, but there was something in them that did not know how to quit. All forces prepare for second engagement, Veth ordered. His voice carried across the ridge, strong and clear. Today we show the Dreshan what we are made of. The humans took their positions. Captain Tay raised his weapon. And the war continued. The trap was perfect. Veth had to admit that much, even as he watched his army being destroyed. 3 days after the ridge battle, the Dreshan had retreated. Veth had thought it was a victory. His soldiers had cheered. The humans had not cheered. They had watched the retreating enemy with careful eyes, saying nothing. Veth should have listened to their silence. Now he stood in a canyon with walls so high that they blocked the sun. The Dreshan had led them here through a series of small defeats that seemed to push them in just the right direction. Veth had thought he was chasing a broken enemy. He had been walking into a cage. The canyon had only one exit. That exit was now filled with Dreshan soldiers. Above, on the canyon walls, enemy archers waited with weapons ready, and behind Veth's army, a rock slide had sealed the way they came. There was nowhere to run. They planned this from the beginning, Drex said. His voice was hollow. Every battle, every retreat. They were hurting us. Veth did not respond. He was counting the enemy forces. 10,000 on the ground. 2,000 more on the walls. Against his remaining 2,500 soldiers, they would not survive this. Captain Tay appeared at Veth's side. The human's uniform was torn and dirty from 3 days of running battles. But his eyes were the same as always. Calm, sharp, and strangely alive. How long do we have? Tay asked. They will attack at sunset. Veth replied. They want the darkness to help them. The Dreshan see better in low light than Corvani. Then humans too, Tay said. He looked up at the canyon walls, then at the blocked exit, then at the sealed path behind them. His mind was working, calculating something that Veth could not guess. Commander, Tay said slowly, I want to request temporary command of the army. Drex made a sound of disbelief. You want what? 1 hour ago we walked into a death trap, and now you want to lead us? I want to try something, Tay said. He ignored Drex and looked directly at Veth. I cannot promise it will work, but I can promise that if we do nothing, everyone here dies. Veth studied the human's face. What are you planning? The Dreshan expect us to defend. They expect us to form a line and wait for them to crush us. I want to do the opposite. Attack? Drex laughed. It was not a happy sound. Attack 12,000 soldiers with 2,500? Not attack, Tay said. Break through. There is a difference. Veth thought about it. He thought about all the battles he had fought, all the victories and defeats. He thought about the warriors behind him, who trusted him with their lives, and he thought about the humans who had refused to break on the ridge. 1 hour, Veth said. You have 1 hour to show me something. If your plan fails, I take back command. Fair enough, Tay said. He turned and walked toward the human soldiers without another word. Hana was waiting for him. The other humans gathered around as Tay began speaking in low tones. Veth could not hear what he said, but he saw their reactions. Some nodded. Some smiled. A few touched small items they carried, perhaps for luck or memory. None of them looked afraid. Tay returned to Veth 15 minutes later. He had a map in his hands, marked with lines and symbols. The canyon narrows near the exit, Tay said, pointing to the map. If we hit them hard at the narrowest point, their numbers will not matter as much. They cannot bring all their soldiers to bear at once. We tried fighting at narrow points before, Veth said. They simply waited us out. They will not wait this time, because we will give them a reason to come to us. Tay looked at Hana. Tell him. Hana stepped forward. The Dreshan commanders are positioned on a platform halfway up the east wall. If we threaten them directly, the enemy will have no choice but to respond with full force. Pride will not let them watch their leaders be attacked. How do we threaten commanders on a wall? Drex demanded. We climb, Tay said simply. Silence. Drex stared at the human like he had grown a second head. Veth looked up at the canyon wall. It was nearly vertical, made of dark stone that offered few handholds. Climbing it in the middle of battle was insane. Humans can do this, Tay said. We are built for climbing in ways that most species are not. Our ancestors used to hunt by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We have flexible joints and natural balance. 10 of my soldiers will climb the wall and attack the command platform. They will die, Veth said. Maybe, but they will kill the commanders first. And when the Dreshans see their leaders fall, they will panic. That panic is our opening. Veth looked at the human captain for a long time. You are asking your soldiers to sacrifice themselves. I am asking them to win, Tay replied. The dying part is optional. The sun began to set. The Dreshan were forming for attack. Veth made his decision. Do it, he said. Tay nodded once. He moved his soldiers into position with quiet commands. The Corvani watched, uncertain what to expect. 10 humans separated from the group. They removed their heavy armor, keeping only light weapons. Among them was a young soldier with a scar across his nose. His name was Dohun, and he had been quiet throughout the campaign. Now he moved with a purpose that seemed larger than his body. You know the plan, Tay told them. Climb fast. Kill the commanders. Hold as long as you can. Dohun smiled. It was a strange smile, peaceful and accepting. We will see you at the end, Captain, one way or another. The 10 humans moved to the base of the canyon wall and began to climb. In the fading light, they looked like shadows crawling up the stone. The Dreshan had not noticed them yet. All eyes were on the main force. Now we wait, Tay said. Veth watched the climbers disappear into the darkness above. His heart beat fast in his chest. This was not how Corvani fought. This was something different. Something he did not fully understand. The Dreshan war drums began to beat. The attack was starting. On the canyon floor, Corvani and humans formed a tight wedge formation. Tay stood at the point, with Hana beside him. Behind them, Veth commanded the main body. When the signal comes, we push forward with everything we have. Tay said. Do not stop. Do not slow down. Our only chance is momentum. What is the signal? Veth asked. Tay pointed up. You will know it when you see it. The Dreshan charged. Thousands of dark-armored soldiers poured toward the wedge formation. Their weapons raised. The sound of their footsteps was like an earthquake. Veth prepared to give the order to defend. But before he could speak, something happened on the east wall. Fire. A bright burst of flame erupted on the command platform. Veth saw shapes moving in the light. Small figures fighting against larger ones. The human climbers had reached their target. Dohun had made it. The Dreshan charge stumbled. Soldiers looked up at their burning command platform. Confused and alarmed, their perfect formation began to break. Now! Tay roared. The wedge shot forward like an arrow. Tay hit the enemy line first, cutting through soldiers with speed that seemed impossible. Hana was beside him, her weapon firing without pause. Behind them, Corvani warriors followed, swept up in the momentum. Veth found himself running with them, his forearms swinging, his voice joining the human war cry that filled the canyon. For the first time in 40 cycles, Veth did not feel like a commander. He felt like a soldier, and it felt glorious. The transformation happened so fast that Veth almost missed it. One moment, the humans were soldiers like any other. The next moment, they were something else entirely. Tay reached the Dreshan line and did not slow down. He hit them like a force of nature, his weapons singing through the air, his body twisting and turning in ways that should have been impossible. Enemy soldiers tried to block him. They failed. They tried to surround him. He slipped through them like water through fingers. But it was not just Tay. Every human in the wedge fought the same way. Veth watched a human soldier take a blade to the shoulder. The wound was deep, almost to the bone. Any Corvani would have fallen back, would have sought medical attention. The human screamed, not in pain but in rage. and used her good arm to kill the enemy who had cut her. Then she kept fighting. Another human took a blow to the leg that should have crippled him. He fell to one knee, used the fall's momentum to sweep his weapon low, and took out 3 Dreshen soldiers before pushing himself back to his feet. He was limping, bleeding, and moving forward. "What are they?" Drex shouted beside Veth. His voice was filled with something between fear and wonder. "What are these creatures?" Veth had no answer. He had fought beside many species in his 40 cycles of war. He had seen bravery and skill and determination. But he had never seen anything like this. The humans were not fighting to survive. They were not fighting to win. They were fighting as if the battle itself was the only thing that mattered. As if each moment of combat was worth more than life or death, and they were laughing. Veth heard it first from Hana. She had taken down 6 Dreshen warriors in rapid succession, and was turning to face more when she laughed. It was not a cruel sound or a mad one. It was the laugh of someone who had found exactly where they belonged. The sound spread. Other humans joined in. They shouted to each other in their native language, words Veth did not understand but felt in his chest. They were singing, in the middle of a desperate battle, surrounded by enemies who wanted them dead. The humans were singing. The Dreshen noticed. Veth could see confusion spreading through their ranks. The Dreshen believed in war as a sacred thing, a serious matter of gods and glory. They did not understand enemies who found joy in combat. That confusion cost them. Captain Tay reached the heart of the Dreshen formation. This was where their strongest warriors waited. Their elite guards who had never been defeated. 10 of them formed a wall of black armor and sharp blades, each one twice the size of any human. Tay did not hesitate. He charged directly at them. Veth expected to see the human captain die. What he saw instead would stay with him forever. Tay fought the 10 elite warriors alone. He was smaller, weaker, and outnumbered. None of that seemed to matter. He moved between their blades like he knew where each strike would come before it started. He attacked openings that should not have existed. He took hits that should have killed him, and kept moving. 3 of the elite warriors fell. Then 4. Then 5. The remaining warriors began to retreat. The elite guard of the Dreshen army, soldiers who had never known defeat, were backing away from a single human. Tay let them go. He turned to face the next group of enemies, blood running down his face, his weapons raised, his eyes alive with something that Veth could only call glory. Above, on the canyon wall, the command platform was fully engulfed in flames. Veth could see shapes still fighting up there. Dohun and his team were still alive, still holding, still buying time. Their sacrifice was working. The Corvani warriors saw what the humans were doing. They saw the fear in Dreshen eyes. And something changed in them too. Drex roared a battle cry and charged forward with new energy. Other Corvani followed. They did not just push at the enemy line now. They tore through it. The wedge became a spear, driving deep into the Dreshen formation. Humans and Corvani fought side by side, their different styles combining into something devastating. Where Corvani power met human speed, nothing could stand. Veth found himself at the front of the charge. He killed 3 Dreshen warriors in quick succession, his 4 arms working together like he was young again. The tiredness that had weighed him down for so long was gone. In its place was fire. "The exit!" Hana shouted. She pointed ahead, where the canyon opened to the plains beyond. The Dreshen blocking the exit were breaking, pulling back in disorder. The trap was falling apart. Tay appeared beside Veth. The human captain was covered in wounds. His left arm hung at a bad angle, clearly broken. Blood matted his hair and stained his uniform. He should not have been able to stand. He was smiling. "Do you see it now, Commander?" Tay asked. His voice was calm despite everything. "Do you understand what we are?" "What?" Veth asked. He parried a Dreshen blade and cut down its owner. "What are you?" What are you?" "We are human," Tay said. "This is what we do. This is what we have always done. We find the line between life and death, and we dance on it." Another wave of Dreshen hit their position. Veth and Tay fought together, back to back. The human captain used only one arm now, but he killed just as efficiently as before. Each movement was precise, each strike was final. The singing had spread to the Corvani. Veth heard his own soldiers shouting the human song. Words they did not know in a language they did not speak. It did not matter. The meaning was clear. It was a song of defiance, a song of war, a song of glory. The Dreschen line collapsed. Soldiers who had never retreated began to run. The fear that humans had planted in their hearts grew into panic. The wedge reached the canyon exit. Beyond it, the plains stretched out under a sky painted orange by the setting sun. Freedom, survival, victory. But the fight was not over. Veth looked back. The Dreschen were regrouping, their commanders' deaths making them desperate rather than defeated. They were preparing to follow, to chase the escaping army across the plains. Tay saw it too. He stopped at the canyon exit and turned to face the interior. "Get your soldiers out," he told Veth. "We will hold them here." "You will die," Veth said. "Maybe." Tay raised his weapon with his one working arm. Around him, the surviving humans gathered. 23 of them left from the original 50. Each one wounded, each one still ready to fight. "Humans have a saying," Tay said. "It is a good day to die. But we also have another saying. Make the enemy die for their country, while you live for yours." Hana laughed. "Even now, with death certain," she laughed. Veth wanted to argue. He wanted to order them to retreat with the rest of the army. But he saw their eyes, and he understood. This was their choice. This was their glory. "I will remember you," Veth said. It was the highest honor a Corvani could give. Tay nodded. Then he turned back to face the canyon, where thousands of Dreschen were gathering for one final charge. "Come on then," the human captain called out to the enemy. His voice echoed off the canyon walls. "Let us show you what humanity is made of." The Dreschen charged. The humans met them, and the canyon filled with the sound of glory. Veth led his army across the plains as darkness fell. Behind them, the sounds of battle faded slowly into the night. The screams, the clash of metal, the war songs that the humans refused to stop singing. He did not look back. He could not. The surviving Corvani moved in silence. 2,000 soldiers, all that remained of a proud army. They walked with their heads down, their spirits heavy with the knowledge of what they had left behind. Drex walked beside Veth. The young officer had changed. The arrogance that had filled him when the humans first arrived was gone. In its place was something quieter, deeper. "Will they survive?" Drex asked. "No," Veth replied. His voice was flat. 23 soldiers against thousands. Even humans cannot survive those numbers. Then why did they stay? Veth thought about Tay's face in those final moments. The calm, the acceptance, the strange joy that burned in his dark eyes. "Because that is who they are," Veth said. "They do not fight to survive. They fight to protect what matters." And in that moment, what mattered was giving us time to escape. They marched through the night and into the next day. When they finally reached the Allied base, Veth sent his soldiers to rest and went to make his report. The generals listened in silence as he described the canyon trap, the human plan, and the sacrifice at the exit. When he finished, the room was quiet. 50 humans held off an entire Dreschen army, one general said. "That seems impossible." "I saw it with my own eyes," Veth replied. "They did not just hold. They pushed back. They made the Dreschen afraid." "And you say none of them survived?" Veth opened his mouth to confirm. But before he could speak, a communication officer burst into the room. "Commander Veth, there are signals approaching from the east. Small group. They are transmitting human identification codes." Veth ran. He pushed through the base, past startled soldiers and busy workers, until he reached the eastern gate. The sun was setting again, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. On the horizon, he saw them, 7 figures walking across the plains. They moved slowly, some leaning on others for support. But they were moving. They were alive. Veth met them at the gate. Tay was in the front, his broken arm wrapped against his chest, his face covered in dried blood. Beside him was Hana, limping on a leg that should not have been able to hold her weight. Behind them came 5 more humans, each one a monument to wounds and willpower. "Captain," Veth said. He could not find other words. Tay looked up at him. The human's eyes were tired, but clear. And somehow, impossibly, he was smiling. "We held the canyon for 6 hours," Tay said. His voice was rough, barely above a whisper. "Long enough for the Dreshen to decide we were not worth the cost. They retreated. And 7 of you drove back an army?" Drex had followed Veth to the gate. His voice was full of disbelief. "Not drove back," Hana said. She coughed, and blood flecked her lips. "Just made them tired of dying. Humans are good at that. Making enemies tired." The other soldiers in the base had gathered now. Corvani warriors stood in rows, watching the 7 battered humans walk through the gate. No one spoke. No one moved. Then, without planning or command, the Corvani began to salute. 4 armed warriors raised their hands in respect for creatures half their size, who had done what entire armies could not. Tay stopped in the center of the gathering. He looked at the faces around him, at the respect and wonder in their eyes. "We lost good people in that canyon," he said. His voice was stronger now, carrying across the crowd. "Dohun, Yuna, Minho, Jihei, all the others. They did not die because they had to. They died because they chose to. That is the human way." He turned to face Veth directly. "Commander, I have fought in many wars. I have served with many species, but I have never served with soldiers braver than your Corvani. When we charged that canyon, your people did not hesitate. They followed humans into certain death. That is not weakness, that is glory." Veth felt something in his chest, an emotion he had not experienced in decades. His eyes burned. "What happens now?" he asked. Tay straightened. "Despite his wounds, despite his exhaustion, now we finish this war," the human said. "The Dreshen saw what happens when humans fight without limits. They know what we can do. When we march against them again, they will remember the canyon. They will remember the singing. They will remember the soldiers who would not stop, who could not be broken, who laughed in the face of death." He smiled. It was the same strange smile he had worn from the beginning, warm and fierce at the same time. "Fear is a weapon, Commander, and we just gave the Dreshen enough fear to last a lifetime." The war continued for 3 more months. Veth led his forces in 12 more battles. Tay and his 7 surviving humans fought in every one. The Dreshen never recovered from the canyon. Every time they faced human soldiers, Veth could see the memory in their eyes. They hesitated. They doubted. They feared. By the time the Dreshen Empire sued for peace, Veth had won back every piece of ground his people had lost. The treaty was signed on a neutral station. With representatives from a dozen species watching, Tay was there. He stood beside Veth as the Dreshen commanders walked forward to surrender their weapons. "You could have had this victory without us," Tay said quietly. "The Corvani are strong. You would have found a way eventually." "Perhaps," Veth replied. "But you showed us something we had forgotten. War is not just about strength or numbers. It is about spirit, about the will to keep fighting when everything says you should stop. That is the human secret," Tay said. "We are not the strongest species or the smartest, but we do not know when to quit. Our ancestors survived ice ages and famines and disasters that should have ended our species. We are still here because giving up is not in our nature." Veth looked at the human captain. He thought about everything he had seen. The ridge, the canyon, the 7 soldiers walking out of the impossible. "I have fought wars for 40 cycles, Veth said. "I thought I understood what war was, but I was wrong. War was familiar to me, comfortable, predictable." He placed one of his 4 hands on Tay's shoulder. "Then I saw human glory unleashed. And I learned that war can be something more, something terrifying and beautiful and alive. Tay nodded. Glory is not about winning or losing. It is about how you fight. It is about what you are willing to sacrifice for the people beside you. Yes, Veth said. I understand that now. The treaty was signed. The war was over. But the memory of what had happened in that canyon would echo through the galaxy for generations. Other species would hear the story. They would learn about the 50 humans who held against thousands. They would hear about the singing, the laughing, the 7 survivors who walked out of the impossible. And they would understand, as Veth had understood, that humanity was something special, not because they were strong or clever or advanced, but because they knew how to find glory in the darkest moments, and that made them the most dangerous species of all.